Everybody doing?
Great.
Great. All right. I think we have quorum, so while folks help themselves to the excellent food. Who's the caterer here? Who provided the food?
Deeley's Cuisine.
Deeley's?
Yeah, there's the Inca.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Okay.
So at this time, I'm just going to call to order the meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee.
Excuse me, I'd like to add something into the agenda.
Okay.
And so for unfinished business, if I may.
Let's just tackle that as an announcement after all the other stuff.
I would like it under unfinished business. please.
Unfinished business? Okay. Let me just, is that a particular category, unfinished business? Okay.
Maybe announcements or?
Let's just call it announcement.
No, I would prefer unfinished business.
Okay, so what exactly
I
is your
would like to
motion?
make a motion, please.
Okay, to amend the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your motion?
I'd like to make a motion to add into the agenda for unfinished business and the bylaws.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion, I think we need more specificity here. So we're amending the agenda to discuss the bylaws?
Yes.
Okay.
Under unfinished business.
Okay. All right, do we have any discussion on that motion? Okay. Do we have a second?
Yep, I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Just gonna move that to before the announcement and after the reports from the standing committee. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we're on a roll. So the next item of the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 16, 2022 meeting, and I believe the minutes were already sent out, so folks might have had a chance to review them already.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Second.
so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Let's just move to the public invitation. I don't think we have, do we have anybody that requested time to speak?
No.
No? So next, we are moving to the reports from the subcommittees. And I know there's an issue with the subcommittees, right? And they haven't been meeting, is that correct?
Correct. Could I
Okay.
say on the record that, that members have been told by staff that we're not able to meet
That was it, thank you.
online? And so the subcommittees have been unable to.
And for clarification, is that general counsel is looking into that? What was the conclusion as to whether we can do the,
So you should have received a meeting invitation today from Naomi for, is it? October 7th, and at that time, the people attending the meeting will have the opportunity to discuss that with general counsel. They'll be able to advise us on what it is that we need to do in particular. We have some initial steps to take care of that, but any additional questions or anything like that, you can ask that.
Excellent. Okay, hopefully we can get an answer for that soon. Okay, excellent. Moving on, and we have our first presentation, and we have Marcy Simon, who's the Human Resources Director, and we'll have this presentation on human resources, hiring data, and highlights. And I know there's a lot of interest in this information from community members, so welcome, Marcy.
Thank you, Chair, Council Committee members. Appreciate being here. So I was asked to come together to bring some information together to present to you about the council's workforce. So I have put together some slides that show the council's workforce composition, some slides about vacancies filled, promotions, a little bit about our affirmative action focus areas, and then our workforce development department, just a few slides to talk about that work. So just a little bit about the data. We have a dashboard that we've created that takes all of the personnel information, actions that are taken, and puts it into a whole series of charts. So this is a smattering of some of those charts that I think you'd be most interested in. You know, as I talked with Lila, she had said if we focused on the workforce composition and then how promotions, vacancies have been filled, that would be helpful for you all. And I think I probably have about 15 minutes of slides, and I'll try to, you know, make sense out of them, and then we can have some time for questions. So this one, we start with the workforce composition, race, and ethnicity, and I have a few slides that would talk about that. This first one shows that over time, so I will say that every data point here, a lot of the data points when it says a year, like say 2018, that would be a data point that would be as of December 31st of that year. So this data is always about a point in time. When it says 2022, it would be, that data point would have been taken at the end of June. So halfway through the year, Q1 and Q2. So you can see here that this is the sort of purple line would indicate our employees of color from 2018 at 34.4% to today at 36.6%. The next graph to the right shows by management level, and you can see that we've had a really big increase from 2018 in our first line supervisor, employees of color. You can see then the middle line, red line, is our manager of managers. So middle managers, usually those folks would have supervisors reporting to them. We've gone from 13.4% employees of color there to 17%. And then you'll see that we have not made progress on the business unit manager. We started at 11.7 5 years ago, and we're at 10.5. This is a smaller group of people, probably around, I would say 20 people. This slide shows how we compare to the region. This would be the regional labor market. So comparing the race, ethnicity of employees at the council as a general rule, 15.5% of the regional labor market, labor forces are people of color, and so you can see that we're 15.5% above that. Now I understand too that we want to be able to look at disaggregated data, and so this slide to the right shows us our employee count by race, ethnicity, And we have the start year of 2018 to the ending year of 2022, and then what was the change over that 5-year period of time. Our biggest changes came in the area of Asian and Hispanic employees, 26.3% increase and 21.3% increase. You can see that we have decreased in our total percentage population of American Indian and Pacific Islander. Those are relatively or very small numbers compared to the other numbers. 2% increase or 1.6% increase in our Black employees. All right, so now.
Is that percentage 1.6 you said? Is that math right? It's 2.4, I mean 24.2 and 24.6. So isn't that 0.4%, not 1.6?
That's right. And I pulled this straight from the dashboard, so I'll have to get that fixed. It's not correct.
So can I just ask one other question?
You bet.
That increase in Asian and Hispanic, is that also reflected in the first 2 slides, in the managerial hires? Because you didn't disaggregate those.
I did not. And
I don't think that percentage on the very last end is actually, the differences is number-wise, because why would the Asian go up 26% then if it was only from 5.7 to 7.3? So I think it must be some other kind of math.
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I
you're
don't,
right.
I don't think it's the difference there.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that
Let
question,
me get
but
that slide fixed.
I think it might be right, but wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the first
No,
two,
yeah.
18 and 22 are the total percent of the workforce, and then the third is the percent increase, so we're not dividing by the same thing.
Yeah, they're not divided the same way.
Right, that would make sense.
So 1.6 is probably correct.
yeah, I see.
Well, I'm so glad that we have people that know math here. I would have never known.
So yeah, in each, yeah. each
Definitely
year-
don't fit the stereotype. No, I'm just kidding.
So each year would be the percentage based on that year's total population. Right? I'm wondering if, okay, this next slide will give you, let's see, is that true? I think on our first slide, so I'm gonna go back. You can see that on our first slide, the head count, I wanted you to notice too that in 2018, we had 4,281 employees, and by end of June this year, we had 2,862. So you can see that we've had, since COVID, a decline in the number of employees. And that with the labor shortage, it's been difficult to fill those positions. Some positions, not all, but some. All right, so now this next 2 slides will show us our race, ethnicity by council roles and by business unit. So on the left, you can see in our environmental services unit, you can see overall people of color and the change over time for individual contributors and then for managers. And then that goes for Metro Transit and then for regional administration. I think the biggest changes here you see is in manager ranks at Metro Transit, starting at 18.9 in 2018 and midsummer here at 25.9. In regional administration, also managers in that period of time, 12.5 to 17.5.
Can I ask if you can clarify what is an individual contributor?
It would be anyone who's not in a supervisory position.
So all line staff, for example.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And that could be, I mean, all across the organization. You know, anybody who wouldn't be supervising others. This is a slide that breaks out Metro Transit by bus operators and then by other jobs. So we like to say, because sometimes people say, well, bus operators are driving all of the diversity. They certainly are driving diversity in our organization, but it is not the only place. So in terms of Metro Transit, you can see that individual contributors for jobs not bus operator went from 38.5 to 33.6. So that was about a 5% increase over the 5 years. And then you can see a manager, which was the same as in the slide before. This is a slide that just takes another look by taking race, ethnicity by division and then male, female. And one thing that you'll notice here is that in our operations divisions, environmental services and Metro Transit, we're very male dominated, more male dominated. And that partly has to do with the very operational trades, focus of those jobs. Plant operator, interceptor service worker, mechanic, and we have recruited and begun to get more women in those jobs, but it's not as I think in our region we don't have the population to draw from in terms of the labor market, but as opportunities, as in high school, people see that they have opportunities as regardless of gender, that they can enter into some of those good jobs. And I'll show you some of the work that we're doing in workforce development that's helping to attract more women to our trades jobs.
Do you have things that assist with, like, I'm a pretty short person, so driving a bus sounds crazy to me, but do you have assistance? Like, is there ways to,
Yeah, we sure do. I mean, we have a reasonable accommodation process, and so folks can definitely request an accommodation to make the job work better for their physical capabilities. You're gonna see here in a minute, this next slide talks about workforce composition in terms of individuals who identify as having a disability. This is self-reported information, of course. We don't know that we have accurate information here, but this is, compared to so you see on the left, change from 2018 to 2022. I'm trying to see about time where we're at, okay. Compared to the regional labor market at 5.5%, we're under except in community development, which is a smaller division. I mean, that division probably has less than 100 employees. But you can see that there was an increase at Metro Transit, decrease in ES, about the same in RA, increase in CD, and then a big increase in MTS, but that's an even smaller group. That's probably 30 people, so. On the right, you see individuals with disabilities at the percentage of management level. And you can see that 2018 is in gray, 2022 is in black.
And just wondering for our viewing audience, could we go through what the initials are, what the different groups are, like what
sure.
RA is and CD?
Sure. So MT is Metro Transit, ES is Environmental Services, RA is Regional Administration, and that would be all of the sort of service divisions like IS, HR, procurement, those kinds of departments. Community Development Division is CD, and then MTS is Metropolitan Transportation Services. Okay, then this is a slide, we just so you can see, we filled 283 vacancies this year so far, or as of mid-year. And then on the right, you can see our time to fill. Our time to fill actually council-wide at 11.1 weeks is as low as it's ever been. But you can see that we range from 11 weeks to about 13, 14 weeks. We think that part of this is to do with, number one, fewer candidates, so we're gonna be able to screen candidates quicker and go through the process. Also though, because of the tight labor market, managers know that if we don't move, we're gonna lose candidates, because once you get to if you wait too long to screen the candidates, by the time you schedule an interview, you could have lost 2 or 3 folks. So the other thing is that we do have more positions that are open to fill on a continuous basis. like bus operator, transit police. Some of our IT positions have been open for a year. And so those don't hit until they fill. So as we start to fill some of those more, those open continuous positions, these numbers might end up going up. But last time I looked, we had about 14 positions or job titles that were open continuous that we were having difficulty filling. That doesn't mean that others aren't difficult. I mean, we've noticed a decrease in candidates and sometimes hard to find the skill set that we need for some of the positions. So now I'm going to start to talk about our vacancies filled. And so, in order to diversify your workforce, you need to be thinking about and deliberate about who you're bringing into your organization. You can't just ask the current workforce to all leave and then replace, right? But you're building over time. So this is the outcomes that we were seeing in terms of people of color, new hires, and then, or vacancies filled. So sometimes vacancies are filled with internal candidates, and that's included here. So anytime there's a vacancy, we'd say, how did we fill that position? So for people of color, 2018, you can see that it went from 43%, 46, 49, 47. This year so far it's 43. And then for women, 29, 27, 28, 25, and then this year 33. But you can see at the bottom, in 2018 we filled 643 vacancies. Last year it was 455. The first year of COVID it was 357. So we're really slowing down the pandemic effect of, the ability to fill vacancies. Now this gives you a sense of our vacancies filled, people of color and women by division. And when it says 2022 Q1 and 2, it's full years for everything, but 2022 is just half year, but still percentages. So you can see how we're doing for people of color and community development. In the purple line, in environmental services, it's that light green line. In regional administration, it's the pink line. Metropolitan Transportation Services, again, a very small division in the light blue. Metro Transit, people of color in the light blue. And then internship program. It's just a slide that I like to include once in a while. We have urban scholars, we have this year ability interns, 59 regular interns. 50% of our applicants were people of color and 50% were women, and you can see that we filled our internships 40% people of color and 57% women. So here's another snapshot of how to, question?
Yes. Among the internships, what percentage of them stay in the workforce?
That's a really good question. We have some of that information, but I don't have it right now. So how about if I look that up for you and I'll send it your way. Okay. We do track. I mean, sometimes people leave us and then come back. So we have tried to keep track of our interns and who, whether they stay with us. Sometimes there's not an entry-level position for an intern to move into. We've created a program called a fellow, where a department can decide to fill a position at a very entry level with an intern or a former intern, and that after a year or two, then they convert it to a regular position. Was there a question?
Yeah, I had just a quick one. I'm assuming that when you have the differences of people of color and women, you're including women of color and the women?
Yeah, and there's overlap, so they're not separate,
Okay.
right? So sometimes when I say people of color, I include men and women.
Mm-hmm.
When I say women or men, I mean women of color, white women, right? And so
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now this gives you a sense of our applications, and this is for the full year of just 2021. So you can see, like, what I try to do with these slides is to say, are we adequately accessing our applicant pool? You know, so do we hire it? You know, this doesn't screen for were the applicants, did they meet minimum qualifications, but strictly to say if we had, you know, so you can see in environmental services, they had 29% of their applicants were people of color and they hired 24.1%. In community development, it was 34.5, they hired 33. In regional administration, 39.2% of their applicants were people of color and they hired 50%. So you can see that, you know, more than utilizing that candidate pool. So this just tells me that there's still opportunity. So, you know, council-wide, 40.7% of our applicants were applicants of color, and we hired 47.3% of our hires. And this would be vacancies filled again, wouldn't necessarily be brand new to the council. And then you can see here, disaggregated based on race, ethnicity, the applicants and the hires. So hires are in blue, applicants are in green. So you can see that we really, you know, we hired better than average for Hispanic, even for Black candidates. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, and this is another snapshot in time. I haven't actually pulled this into a slide before, so I took 2017 and what was the percentage disaggregated for promotions from within, and then what did that look like in 2011? You can see there were only 75 promotions in 2017, 111 in 21, and then you can see for each race ethnicity, what percentage of the promotions did those employees get, and what percentage are they of the total workforce? So you can see in 2017, 24.1% of the, for example, our Black employees made up 24.1% of our employees, and 14.7% of our promotions were of Black employees. Last year, we had slightly more, 24.9% employees, Black employees, and of our promotions, 21.6% were Black employees. So I take that as a good sign if we can see that we're increasing the promotional opportunities for our employees. That's a good thing. All right. Moving right along, and I don't have too many more slides here. This is just management vacancies filled. Year to date this year, how many we filled, percent people of color, and then how that compares to last year. Of course, we're not done yet this year, but at least it's a snapshot in time for how we compare to the full year of last year. That's the end of the data, if you will. I will tell you that we have a strong partnership between the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity and Human Resources in our affirmative action focus areas. And Ashanti Payne is my lead partner in HR with this work, along with several of the HR managers in our departments. But these are the 11 focus areas that we're working on, and you can see that it's a wide range of things that we're trying to do here, like, you know, to reach community-based organizations, to build experience in the organization around employing employees with disability in our ability internship program. Our workforce development programs. We've created an equity recruitment scorecard to really help our hiring managers and our recruiters pay attention to how we can build equity and inclusion and diverse outcomes at every step of the hiring process, from minimum qualifications, to questions we're using in interviews, to who are we reaching out to for, to find applicants, to who's on the panel. Using what we call masked applicant review, so the first review does not include the name of the applicant, so that we don't have bias associated with the names. Employee resource groups, the data dashboard that I referenced, we created that this year and we're really keep trying to refine that. Improving our applicant testing, our career ladder workshops, and then our really focused effort on bus operator retention and separation. And then I had just a couple of slides. In human resources, we have a workforce development department, and this is really about creating pipeline programs to diversify our workforce and to create opportunities for employment within the council. This particular one was Building Strong Communities, was a partnership with the Construction Trade Council, and it was designed to help build people of color in those trades unions, like electricians and painters and so on. And the program has been completely taken by the construction trades, and the Met Council and the Workforce Development Department really helped design that program. So it's a program where, each of the unions, trades unions out there have apprenticeship programs. And so this is a way to get people ready to understand what is an apprenticeship, what kind of jobs are out there in the trades, what skills do you need, and then filters them into the respective, they had a preview of some of the trades, and then they could apply to be in the apprenticeship programs. And this helps us with our capital projects. So all of the contractors who work on our capital projects have a goal for diversity in their contractor ranks. So this was a really cool program, and basically the construction trades are seeing this as a national model that they're pushing out to other parts of the country. We do have internally some trainee programs. The Revenue Equipment Technician Trainee Program is a brand new one that we're recruiting for this fall. We've had a Bus Maintenance Technician Apprenticeship Program called MTT. Maybe some of you have heard of that program. And we're opening that up for applicants this fall. And Environmental Services has a construction inspector trainee program. And so these are all programs where we recruit in the community, we provide training, and then we provide jobs. And it's good programs and all along the way. And sometimes you have to have partnerships with community colleges to provide that training for somebody, for example, who's never been a mechanic. You're gonna have to have some schooling, and you need get some help from our community colleges. And here's just a couple of slides. This summer the Workforce Development Department did some special outreach events to recruit for our bus operator position, but also to recruit for these trainee programs. And here you can see some other real targeted outreach that we did. Best luck that we've had has been in some of the, the community festivals, Friday prayer, or weekend religious services. So just some ways we've been successful. And then to translate, it's been helpful. So there is what I have. I feel like I've talked too long, sorry.
That's okay. Let me, if I can, just ask two quick questions, and then we'll open it to the members. I just have like two big picture slash context questions, and I'm just looking at the percentages of women and people of color. And one of the statistics that were kind of interesting to me is that vacancies filed council-wide,
Filled, yes.
and there's like 33% is women. But I will assume that the total pool will be closer to 50%, right? Of available workers?
Yes, in the region, you're right,
Okay,
yes.
so are we accessing the pool or any reasons why we don't have a higher number?
Right, and
Because we know that the numbers are out.
right, exactly. So when you, the reason is because of the nature of the jobs, I believe. Because when you look at the labor market numbers, and I have the data, I mean, it's like the regional labor market has a total number, but it also has number by different kinds of professions, like medical, or transportation, or electrician, it's lots of. So when you look at the transportation numbers, you can see that the labor market is far less than 50% women. Or you look at some of the mechanical or construction kind of trades. So I think that's part of the issue. So we wouldn't see a 50% women filling our vacancies because probably, I would say 65%, 70% of our vacancies are for those trades kinds of jobs.
Would that be the same analysis for people of color too, that, the numbers are there, but we're not accessing the available pool?
Well, let's see, when you go to, just depends on what you're looking at, right? So this slide here, this one right here. So this tells us that we 15.5, the total council's people of color employment is 15.5% higher than people of color in the labor market.
Okay.
And I'm not the expert at this, Ashanti can talk about this, but we create needs for every single position. There's 11 EO codes or 8 EO codes, and so when we create need, we decide, you have to take a look at how many women, people of color, people with disabilities are in our workforce, compare that to in the labor market, and if there's a difference, a negative difference in what we need to fill, women or people of color. And so for us, it's women in almost every category. It's people of color more in our
Skilled craft is
craft.
across the board, so
technicians. Yeah.
So you're only doing availability analysis based on the aggregate of people of color, not disaggregate based on
No, it's
the.
I'm sorry, it is disaggregated.
So,
but-
and that would be the same then, that
Yeah.
there is less availability across the board with African Americans and everybody in all of your job categories.
Right.
And then you just mesh it together and say,
Right, and what I wanna say about that too, though, is affirmative action. That's kind of, there's formulas for exactly how we're supposed to do it.
you're supposed to do it
That-
by each
Right.
protected group status.
Right, but that does not mean that, we're limited by that, right? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that
You should report it.
we're trying to attract people of color into all of our positions regardless if there's a need or not. We just, you can't use race as a basis for.
Well, right, there is no caps and no minimum or maximum. If you had qualified folks in 3,000 jobs here at the council and all black people working them, and you could justify that, and you winked your eye like, that's not gonna happen, but, I mean, as long as you can find that availability, and they're willing to work here and they're qualified, you could theoretically have a whole black workforce right here in the council. I mean, we know that's not gonna be the case, but the point is that when you present this data to us, to me, it feels like, oh man, I gotta not, present something that make us look kind of bad, so I'm gonna aggregate all the people of color in here and present it as people of color. We're actually here as partners to help. And I probably can't navigate the Latino community as well as Francisco can, or, other communities. But if you show me disaggregated data and availability of employment opportunities in a specific job category, I may be able to navigate the African-American community and say, hey, you need to reach out to the Met Council or look for jobs that are available there because they have those vacancies. But now you're presenting this to me as an equity advisory person in the aggregate. So I don't know if there's an underutilization of African-American people or Asian or who it is. I just know that people of color are doing that as if we're all the same. We all went to the same school, we got the same education, you know, and experiences. And so when these reports come to us, it's just much better information to disaggregate, you know, have it disaggregated. And not come to us thinking that somehow you're gonna be shamed if there are no African Americans working in a job category. We're just gonna help you find them, you know, to fill the category. And that's how I feel sometimes sitting here when this information come in. It's like, let's lump everybody together, then it looks good in comparison to white people, and then I don't look so bad, or they may think negatively of me. That's not why we're here. But this does me no good at all. To have it this way, and if we can disaggregate it, it would be a lot better.
That's how I feel about the women.
Mr. Chair,
That's why I asked. It's
Yeah,
helping us
Shannon.
together.
could I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perhaps, I would offer to this committee, the work that that the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity does is within the affirmative action and EEO program planning area. So our federal plan that we submitted to FTA, is it May? Yes, May. We also submitted our state plan in August. That has what you're looking for.
The EEO one. I mean, if you just brought us the EEO one, which gives the job categories, full-time versus part-time, that doesn't tell us this is part-time or full-time. By job category and by race and ethnicity. That EEO one form is, if you just brought that in and walked us through that and looked at it from each year, it would tell us a lot more than what this does right here. I'm like dizzy from this. And I do have a couple questions to ask, though.
Well, and I will say, you know, because I would want Ashanti to present that to you.
That's fine.
Yeah, because, and I, you know, I was asked to bring this, and I absolutely get
Yeah,
it.
it's no big deal.
And I don't
mean, we're
feel,
not trying to-
I really appreciate, you know, really appreciate how you said that, and we, you know, every data point can be disaggregated, but I really think that the affirmative action plan data is the data you'd like to see. and should
As
see.
long as it's
Yeah.
not what's in the plan that have the underutilization identified for protected group people as people of color, and then a note saying, this is what management and budget want us, how they want us to write it. But if you look at 43A, and you look at the administrative rules, it basically says you are to do this in a disaggregated way, do availability analysis in a disaggregate by each of the protected groups, and report it that way. That's what the state law says and state administrative rules say. But then I know, then you come here and it's like, why are you masking this, and why not just present it as it is? I mean, in some cases, you don't even mention white people there, and you know, what advantages or disadvantages they're at within the grand scheme of things. And that's, I mean, if we're gonna talk equity, do we need to just talk equity universally? But anyway, here's my questions, and I'm sorry to have to ask. Why did you not present us any information on the workforce development program by race? Who's participating in that? You know, because, you know, within my community, the trades, in some communities is a great thing, but in my community, there's a history of them bringing people in, using them in apprenticeship, never taking them off the bench to place them into the higher paying jobs. And I just had like 5 calls this week from people who had gone through that with the trades programs, hoping to get placed on some of the highway construction jobs and things like that, and wondering if we could somehow help them out, because they've been in the apprentice program for a year or more, and have finished that up, but they've just been sitting on the bench, not being able to get any work. And they know that other people are getting the preference. The other thing is, the affirmative action requirements on contracts that are issued. And that data, like, wasn't presented here. You alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah.
That those are other jobs that get created from Met Council money, and that should be presented as well, in this information. And then my last question is this. My last question is, if you have those vacancies and you have underutilization in protected group communities, people of color, could the Met Council just say that we're going to address our underutilization, historical underutilization, and target these positions to those underutilized communities? Because there's no need to make up where you have overutilization, meaning in white community, you are meeting all of those benchmarks and greater, and some of the things showed it, but you have underutilization of people of color. If you disaggregate that and by job category and saying, we're only going to hire in this population qualified individuals because we want to address our underutilization. Why open the application pool up to the universe of everybody when you know you have met at least that minimum utilization, and in some cases with whites, you're overutilizing?
I don't think it's legal. I don't think you can't make race, ethnicity a criteria for hire.
It's been a really big issue in our org.
Your
and-
hiring managers
and the
are
case
doing
law
a good
does
job
not
of it,
support
of making it legal.
That's right,
the problem.
because you're hiring whites.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're saying when it comes to us, that's illegal, but to them, that is, it's not illegal. It really just comes down to an authority of the appointing authority when they have a pool of candidates. If you're gonna focus your outreach and you wanna address underutilization, that should be the rule until those vacancies are filled. And it should be those communities that are being underutilized.
I would say this, if we did that based on our federal program, which is disaggregated each group, then all we would hire is white women. So I think there's some assumptions that were underutilized for people of color across the board, and we're not. So I would again offer that we could bring that information, that data, back to this committee, or provide it to you through email.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if that's where the equity issue is white women, then that's how what we should be addressing. Is that underutilization?
And I would say that's not our issue. I think I'm just offering, I look at this data every day. That's not our issue, and there's no initiative within the council to say we need to be more white. But if you look at it by job category, the fact is, yes, when you look at the higher paying levels, so those EEO job categories, officials, administrators, professionals, technicians, skilled craft, those are all 75 to 80% white. But where the concentration is, or where some people call it overutilization, is with white males. But it's still 75 to 80% white. So I would say the other factor that you gotta factor in is we're in a region that's woefully underperforming. And we know that there are various factors that go into whether you're in the labor force, how you're categorized in the labor force, the economic, educational factors. So we're comparing availability to a region that is woefully underperforming when you compare it to anywhere else. So I think, one, it's a good thing that we're not as white as the region, as the council. We're not as white as the region that we live in. I think it's a positive thing. There are some issues, and I think some things or I should say, things we need to work on and grow on. And I think the information that you're looking for will be helpful for us to kind of talk through that and dive into that a little bit more deeply.
Well, if I may, just for time's sake, I know that Vanessa had a question and then Aaliyah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question in regard to workforce development programs, the internships, and just the overall hiring. Is Metro Transit, you hire justice involved or felony, people that have past felonies, things like that?
So when we do our background checks, we look at every criminal conviction on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, depending on the type of conviction, the relevance to the job, and the completion of service, or of whatever the sentence was. So we're, you know, absolutely every single, there's no like, this is not a, you can be hired here and have had a felony.
Okay,
If it's not job related,
all right,
yeah.
thank you. And then for those job fairs and things, you know, what's the time frame? You see the advertisement, you go to the job fair, you talk to the individuals. And is there a time frame that you look for? Because I've had a couple people that have gone and they have not heard anything. And it's been months, like the last one I think was in July or August. So just a little concerned.
Yeah, so job fairs, we don't take applicants at job fairs, so the idea is to help people understand how to apply for the jobs that we have, so they have to apply.
Okay.
So they have to go onto our website and put their name in the hat for the particular job that they're applying for. We disposition every single employee. I think sometimes what happens is if people don't have a home email address, they have to create an email to apply, but then they have to go back and check that email for the response.
Okay.
So if you've got any, you know, specific individuals or anything in particular, I'd be happy to take a look at and see.
Okay.
But we do get back to every applicant, but I just know that sometimes those responses might go into junk,
Okay.
or somebody wouldn't, you know what I mean, check their email.
Okay.
Well, you
for
said
the
12
response.
weeks, right? 11
Yeah,
points.
11.1, yeah.
11.1 weeks, so if
maybe
it was
it's a little
July,
early, yeah.
Yeah,
they're
But
not
it-
done yet.
but going to a job fair isn't gonna make you an applicant. We wouldn't talk to you again if you didn't apply.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, well, thank you.
yeah.
Leah, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Claudia. If you look at slides 12 and 13, where the data is disaggregated, I see that white applicants are the most likely to get hired once they apply, and then white employees are the most likely to get promoted once they already have a job here. So what do you think is going well for white people?
What's going well? White privilege? I don't know. I mean, wait, what slide are you looking at? 12?
12 and 13.
12 and 13, right. Applicants and hire.
Maybe who's applying for them in the first place?
Well, and also, okay, that's applicants. You're talking about promotions or applicants?
Both
Promotions.
applicants and promotions.
Okay.
Well, you answered the question, but,
Yeah.
so thank you for being honest.
Yeah.
Individuals that's white have
the-
higher degrees as well.
The regional piece that you talked about, if you're gonna do availability analysis based on people of color, then yeah, it doesn't help us, but you have to disaggregate it. I mean, look at availability African Americans, look at Latinos, and then let's talk about how do we plan outreach and solicitation based on availability and qualifications in those communities? Because generally posting something in the spokesman recorder may not get to the Latino community. Or putting it in Asian press may not get it to the African American community. So when I see you list those as, these are places we market our stuff, but if it's not marketed with a purpose or an intent, then it doesn't necessarily have the impact. And the last thing I say, and people can get mad because I talk about this stuff, I'm just trying to help. I don't just want to come to the meetings and then feel like, oh my God, they're hiding or they're being defensive about it. Her point is a very valid one, was, what's working for white people? Can we pull that out as a best practice and apply it across the board for other folks that get hired in here? And the last thing is, looking at all of this, and I'm all confused by it because it's just presented wrong. It doesn't help me at all. Maybe everybody else in here can go through this and decide, when I leave here today, how am I gonna help? I don't know, but can you tell me, what can I do to help you based on what this is supposed to be saying?
Well, I mean, I really appreciate what you're saying. I agree with you. And I was asked to bring our workforce data, which was the overall look at the workforce. We have the data about the jobs and the disaggregated areas where we need help. And we can bring that to you.
Yeah.
I was not asked to bring that today, but I certainly will.
We would love
And I
to
think you
see
can help
that.
us,
We'll see that and
absolutely.
help you develop some strategies on how to outreach and who to target and how we can work with you,
Yeah.
JAMA and Hired and all these other places that can find you some good qualified people that may be able to fill those positions. I mean, that's really why we're here.
Yeah,
I just had one quick comment. I love that Edward brings the legal and the EOO perspective and kind of the affirmative action, but don't know anything about any of that, so that's why I'm glad to learn a lot, but like, how can we do better than all that too, and I think the Met Council, at least in my experience, seems as though they were committed to diversifying their workforce beyond just the minimums and the requirements, and has made progress. I mean, I look at a lot of workforce data, and 33% people of color is a large percentage in any organization, which is to say how lame the organizations in our region are, but it's also industry leading, if you will. And so, in addition to meeting the minimums or meeting the particular, I just want to encourage this group to continue to support those efforts to diversify the workforce in general, and whatever we can do to augment and support that. Even if that includes writing amicus briefs to the legislature or during court cases, because I'm sure you get sued all the time, right? Like, when you're trying to do the right thing, you get sued. And so, if there's ways we can support and augment that type of, I know it's all confidential usually, but that type of work, if there's a way we can go above and beyond on the policy side or on the advocacy side, I think that could be a role that this EAC also plays, so.
Thank you for saying that.
More money.
I think that's how the community members on this
Well, any
table
last
feel.
last questions, because we move on for the next week.
So will we, Mr. Chair, will we get the EEO1 kind of format that have that information for the last few years, and what would be not projected but up to date, one that would be filled out, even though you're not filing it just yet?
We actually fill out the EEO4. The EEO1 is specific to construction.
Okay.
So, yes, we have the EEO4 data. I mean, if you just want the workforce composition, do you want promotions, discipline, training? That's all included in our EEO program plan that's submitted to FTA. So, yes, we can provide the EEO4 data.
Can I circulate a format to the committee and see if people would be interested in them filling in the numbers in that form? I mean, it's like an EEO1 form, but it just breaks it out by race and gender and
Music break.
It's a nice ringtone.
The EO one and the EO four, can you bring both of those?
We don't fill out an EO one because it's specific to construction.
Do you, alright.
Yeah, it's
Well,
construction.
let's just see, you can just submit whatever you have on the.
Yeah.
No, we'll just get this again, and this doesn't help us.
Whatever they have that is not.
Can we be open to seeing what we have first? I'm saying that let's be open first with you
Is that
guys have,
okay?
and then if
The
we have any more
EO4
questions.
breaks it down
Don't be
by
targeting me.
gender.
I asked.
You asked the committee, not Edward.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
The
committee.
committee here.
I'm open to new information.
Are you open to it? Okay, great, I'll open
And
it.
ask the committee if they're open to it, but singling me out doesn't help the situation.
You're true.
And just to be clear, the EO4 form breaks it down by gender, ethnicity. They have a category that I don't like called multi-race. I don't like it because it assumes that multi-race is a homogeneous group that faces all the same, but we have it because we're required to do it. But each category, each gender, race for each job category.
That's good. People of color seem to do the same thing as that multi-race thing, do, like we're homogeneous and all that, but it's
I
not
agree.
true.
That's the state version has its problems, and I think the feds version also.
But yeah, that's a good format, I like that. That would be fine if everybody else in agreement, I would love to see it. But it should be a couple of years, not like just 1 year of that information. If you could do the last 3 years or something like that, so we can see how it changed or shift.
We have a
Yes, I
motion
will
to
put
limit the
together
debate.
whatever we have.
Co-chair Gonzalez, can I
Yes.
have a motion to limit the debate?
I would just say if there's any additional questions, you can submit those via email. That would be great, because we have a couple more items that we need to address.
So the next will be, 2022 NCUB report and 2022 FTA semi-annual DBE report with Ashante Payne, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, Assistant Director.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair, committee members and council members. Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And I'm here to talk about some of our small business contracting programs and results. So I'm gonna try and move through this as fast as I can so that if there's questions and discussion, we can have time for that. So disadvantaged business enterprise is applicable to any of our capital programs or projects that incorporate federal funds into that procurement. And these are the types of construction, architectural and engineering, professional and technical contracts. We set a 3-year goal and it's submitted to FTA for approval. Our next submittal will be August of 2023 for our next 3-year goal. We're currently in the 2021-23 period and our goal is 14%. The small business unit establishes numerical goals on individual contracts. And we report that utilization, to FTA semi-annually in June and in December. And the achievement against the annual goal is based on awarded contracts during the reporting period. The total percentage that went to DBE firms, don't fear, we have this information disaggregated coming up. But it was 20.9%. And you see where there were 2 prime contracts, federally funded contracts that went to DBE firms. And 20.9%, as I look back and asked folks that were here before me, That is the highest achievement that we've had in any reporting period. This is how it broke down in terms of dollars. Professional services led the way, construction, and then subrecipients. As some committee members may be aware, we often either grant funds to subrecipients, local governments and others to administer various programs, mainly transportation services, but other things as well. This is how it breaks down, and the one thing I will say, this is a first to me in my almost 30 years of doing this, that the most awarded dollars in a reporting period did not go to Caucasian women. Actually, Hispanic-owned firms led the way during this reporting period. And you can see that there is a more equitable distribution of the awarded dollars across the categories. I think, but I will say, yeah, there's definitely some where we can make some improvement as well. Some of the major contracts that were awarded, the Metro Purple Line was one, and then also in terms of our subrecipients, MVTA, the Burnsville Bus Garage Modernization was also a major project during the reporting period. Some of the highlights, I would say, 2 DB firms were awarded prime contracts, and both of those firms were owned by Asian Pacific American males. 1 Black American woman and 3 Hispanic American women-owned firms were awarded contracts. There were not any contracts awarded to women from those racial categories in the previous reporting period. And then also 1 Native American male firm was awarded a contract, and there were no awards to Native American male firms in our previous reporting period. Some of the things we're doing in terms of process improvement, targeted outreach. So where we knew when we came into this, starting end of last year, beginning of this year, we knew that women of color was an area where we needed to make progress. So we did some targeted outreach events to attract those groups, provide access and opportunity to meet decision makers. And that was done both through meet and greets, individual meet and greets, and we did a couple of group meet and greets. And both the businesses and the business units found significant value in that. Mentor Protege is also an area where we have seen some success for that effort. One of those efforts, one specific effort I would mention is there was an African-American male firm who had never done business with the council prior to 2020 and has done over $2 million of work since then. We've also focused in on our SIM and goal setting process, really trying to get those business units to be more forward thinking in terms of their planning and how they're looking at projects, packaging them, so that we can come in well ahead of the SIM process and have some conversations and consider ideas that are outside of goal setting. One example I would have used, we knew, I looked at a study from Southern Maryland, or audit. Some people, I kind of hesitate to use the word audit, but people are comfortable using it. So one thing that we know from just empirically, and from that study, is as needed contracts or master contracts are a barrier to businesses owned by people of color. So the recommendation from that study was to do less. We think we have a better solution that we borrowed from San Diego area of government. They call it their bench program. So IS just recently issued a contract. We did not set a goal on it, but we worked with them to have an outreach event, do some targeted marketing, planning, and they are going to get 25% participation from MCUBs without setting a goal. So those are different things that we can do. And then We have some funds allocated through the Advancing Equity Grant that we are allocating to business development. So helping businesses access resources, access training, business development resources that can help them position themselves to compete for opportunities with the council. I will hold there for questions. There's also a supplemental packet in it that kind of breaks down the federal information. If you have questions about that, I will stop and answer those questions before I move on to our locally funded.
Yeah, Kristen?
What is SIM, C-I-M?
Thank you. Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, committee member, SIM is contract initiation memo. So that's how, when a business unit wants to initiate a project, it starts with that contract initiation memo. My apologies.
Okay, I was dumb or something.
Let me, if I can just ask one of those big picture questions, just like I asked Marcy about, so what's the total pool? If in a perfect world, knowing the number of businesses out there, what would be the percentage of business owned by people of color that the Met Council will use? I mean, so what's the pool out there, the total pool?
For DBE businesses, I believe there's approximately 900 total businesses.
Okay.
How that breaks down, and I know we provided that information at a council meeting before. I don't have that information readily available, but I can send it to the committee. And how it breaks down, we even broke it down by scope of work. So yes, we have that information, I don't have it readily available.
I know that universe, how much are we accessing?
Mr. Chair, that's a very good question. So when you look at, I look at it like this, in the transit world, that universe is larger.
Okay.
In the environmental services world, that universe is smaller. And that's both from the DBE or certified small business realm and prime bidders or large companies. And again, I don't have it readily available, but I can give I have enough knowledge to give it an approximation. I would say about 90 to 100 bid regularly to the council.
Okay.
At prime or subcontractor level?
I'm talking about both.
Both, okay. Can you break that out? Prime and sub? Roughly.
Is it on this?
Well, that's awarded. So I know that there are only, for our federal contracts, there are only 2 awarded primes during the reported period. And I think 35 out of 104 awarded subcontracts and 2 out of 34 awarded prime contracts.
Councilmember Pacheco had a question, and someone did you have? Just, Councilmember.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, when I look at the numbers here, truth be known, I'm the president of Latino Chamber of Commerce, and currently looking at these numbers myself. And do you, what I've looked at is, I'm working with the Secretary of State's office right now to get the actual numbers of Latino businesses that are registered through the Secretary of State's office and do business in Minnesota. And I've also worked with the Department of Administration. I'm still waiting on some numbers there to look at, one, how many are actually certified as WMBE, and if that's not the right acronym at this point. It's also, I've only got Comm here and a few others that played in there. And I'm trying to get one is, again, an accurate number of the current number of businesses. And then the other one important to me is the Department of Administration's number of WMBE business certified. And my question is two-part. One, by the way, according to the Department of Administration, they have 81 Latino businesses registered in Minnesota. 81 out of the possible, and there's another number here, a possible 9,000 businesses, Latino businesses in the state. And those are the ones that are certified. That's not the ones who are getting any work or not. And if you look at what you presented here, it looks like the Latino community is doing well with the one contract of 3 million or that category. But, again, that may go to one or two companies, and then, they say, look at all this money that's going to the community. Well, and I want to know that because I want to help the others get that contract as well. And sometimes in these bigger contracts, they're somewhat skewed because you get a contract for 2 years of construction or something, and it finishes, and it looks like your number's gone down. Because there was too big of amount spent here, And so my question is, do you have a separate set of numbers that you use in the sense of who qualified to do business with the Met Council?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Councilmember Pacheco, if I understand your question correctly, when you use the term qualified, should I say certified?
Certified,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I want to know. And so again, the question is, do we have an idea of the number that is certified? And I would say, yes, when it comes to DBE firms, for sure. The council plays an active role in the certification of disadvantaged business enterprise firms in our federal procurements. We're part of the certification process, and we have that data, and we provided that data to council and some other spaces before, so we can get that information to you. We can also get that information from the state's admin's numbers, because that's part of our MCUP program. Where it becomes difficult is the CERT program that's operated by the City of St. Paul, which we also include those businesses in our Metropolitan Council Underutilized Business, or MCUP program, because they aggregate those businesses. So if you are a WBE or you're an MBE, you're an MBE, so you're not a Latino-owned business. So where possible, though, our staff takes that extra step to look at the data or how they registered with the Secretary of State or others, so that we can try and get as close as possible to that information as we can.
I guess the other question then is, do you actually do the certification yourself, like Department of Administration does, or have staff to do that, or you use theirs?
Our staff for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, along with, as part of the Minnesota Unified Certification Program, our staff does do those certifications, and that includes Minnesota Department of Transportation, the City of Minneapolis, and the Metropolitan Airports Commission. So together, those entities make up the Minnesota Unified Certification Program. Each entity brings applications to the committee where they vote on it. Each entity represents one vote and for certification.
And then, so that would be also, for example, sorry about the shift, was it North American Supplier Diversity Council, or then NMW lose their acronym as well. They work mostly with businesses, corporations?
Completely different. Now, some of those businesses may be certified in one of those programs, either Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, the state admins program, which they call targeted group business and veteran-owned business, and or the City of St. Paul's CERT program. They could be, but we don't access that database, track that in any way, and I could not provide any real data about those certifications.
Last question. Do you require citizenship as far as your contracts?
I don't know. That would probably be a better question for procurement. I'm not aware of any, but I don't wanna say, cause that, I don't have the right answer for
I
that.
think Minneapolis is the only one that doesn't ask that question. And I know so far I didn't know what our position was. And my questions are in the vein of what's been talked about already, is how we can also help within the community. It's not a gotcha kind of thing, or even affirmative action kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm running with all these businesses, they're asking me, how do I get a contract? So you have to be
Sometimes it's how they
certified. How do I get certified?
write the proposal, or
Right,
the RFP. If there's components that are missing in the proposal, then they're put into another pile.
right.
Just 1 second. Mary Ann, you had a question, and then Brianne.
Yes, thank you, Co-Chair. And, yes, also, I'd like to ask, are these only for the new business, or also can businesses that are already established?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, committee member, yes, new businesses, old businesses, medium businesses, all businesses.
Well, I've also, just one more question, please. Now, can a program, an organization can also apply for the SIM?
When you say organization,
Well,
a business,
well, like Asian organization. When,
well, I should say that the SIM is initiated by the business unit. Once it goes through the process, then a project is advertised, and any business can bid or compete for that opportunity that's advertised. Yes.
so, oh, wonderful, then I can bring that to our table, and then we can write up, and it's like, we can write a grant or a project for the organization, and then we just follow the certification application, kind of. Is that how it works?
Committee member, are you talking about certification?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you don't need to submit a grant for certification.
Yeah.
There's an application process. There is a certification portal that is operated by the Department of Admin, where businesses can go in. They can choose to send that application to all the agencies, so that would be Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, CERT, in the state's program, State Department of Admin, all, one, or none.
Oh, because I'm just gonna be new to the funding team, so I'm just, thank you so much.
Brianne, you had a
Thank you.
question?
Yeah, mostly just a comment about what is our aspirational goal for DBEs and using DBEs, and I think that's a really great question. It's really great to see the increasing variety of different businesses, but I think it should be 100%. The buying power of Met Council is transformational, and if we strive for that, if we won't get it, but if we strive towards 100% using small businesses, underrepresented, disadvantaged businesses, then maybe we'll get closer than we would if we strove for 20%. Strove for 20%. So I just think there's a lot of power dynamics at play in these giant contracts, and they're always going to, the big firms and the big organizations may be publicly traded, so then that money's not even staying in our community, it's going to the shareholders across the nation. And if we really thought about the spend of Met Council as an economic development strategy, economic empowerment strategy, we could make a huge dent, because we have this, it's millions and millions, right? Because this is just one half of a year, and it's 20%. And it's almost $10 million. I can barely read it, 9.4. That's 6 months and 20%. So what if it was 100, I can't do the reverse math on that. But I'm bad at math, so I'm not one of the but it's like $40 million every 6 months. Is that maybe close? That's close, right? $40 million every 6 months, that's $80 million a year. Into, what if we said 100%? Like, how would that transform our communities? So anyway, I just put that out there, and again, like, how can this group advocate for pushing those numbers up? I know the firms, there's a lot of questions about whether the firms are out there. We know the firms are out there, they're just probably not equipped for, like the light rail contract, but there's so much in between. So I would just say, like, to the committee, like, however we can strive to push the envelope and continue for those aspirational goals, because I really think it could transform the economic outcomes of our communities.
Thank you for that comment, committee member. You get no argument from me. I mean, if we had more time, I would love to tell you a story, but I'll save that for another time. But I think you hit it right on, and I think, too, it's how we talk about it with our legislators, with our community folks. This is not a nice to do thing. It's critical to the growth and sustainability of our regional economy. But we don't talk about it like that. We talk about it in these numbers and these aspirational goals, but it's critical that we do better at this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is really interesting to me because I actually come from a family of construction workers and I've never heard of this. And so I was wondering, is this like Metro, it just focuses kind of in the cities, or would this be a rural kind of funding too that would target other counties?
For the Metropolitan Council, this is regional.
So just this area?
Yes.
Okay.
But there are other, if I can speak, there are other opportunities
Okay.
that the state offers and federal government offers for the entire, more than just the Metro District. So MnDOT has a lot of contracts, and other organizations as well. The city has a lot of contracts.
Like in small towns?
Small towns, of course. Every government has these type of programs in Minnesota.
Hennepin County.
Yeah, Hennepin County, Ramsey
Well, I'm thinking
County.
like McLeod County.
And here is where you get certified. So you can come here for certification to be able to work in those spaces.
Okay.
So start here and then venture out to looking into your city government and those areas for those type of contracts that may be out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
And of course, contracting during the construction season, the awards are usually awarded in the wintertime and early spring. Right, because the construction work is done within the spring through the fall here. So just look for it in that time, but it's spruced up throughout the year as well.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks. This might be a basic thing, but I just, talking about the certification, and is it like if someone has diversity, let's say 1/16th American Indian or 1/16th African American versus identify as a woman, is there like the certifications, is it check on those things, or is it just by identity where you could be a white person but identify as an African American and you'd be fine by checking the box?
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Council Member, that isn't a basic question, actually. So what I will say is, when it comes to the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the federal program has the most stringent certification requirements. We require an on-site, we require a whole bunch of information to really dig into that question. And some are more less stringent than others. And then when you are talking about indigenous communities, it's even a different lens and standard that is applied in terms of the questions that you are required to ask, especially on the federal level. It may differ at the state and local levels, but on the federal level, it's even a different set of questions and criteria that is evaluated.
Okay. Can I just add, if you're a woman, they also want to make sure that you're not just running a shell game for your husband. So they also look very deeply into your personal assets.
Because that happens.
Oh, more like a 3 year. 2 to 3 years.
Are there any other questions?
Wow, yes.
Can we move to the reports for standing committee?
The reports from the standing committee. I will defer to Councilmember Pacheco if he recalls anything from the last management committee meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
Oh,
appreciate
thank you.
Well, the last management, we basically are kidding our budget process, and so we had a first kind of walk through the budget. And it doesn't include everything yet, and the operating and some other new numbers will come into that. By the time we have the next meeting, I can come and tell you where we're at. Because they have to go to the environmental committee, all committees are now seeing what the budgets will be and presenting as well. I'm also on the transportation committee. And right there, I think my district includes the green line, the blue line, and the E line. And actually, maybe I could take some time and kind of talk about the not tonight, the green, blue line going forward, the extension, because it goes right through North Minneapolis. And there's, there's some sort of questions whether we should go on West Broadway, how do we get to West Broadway? And it does impact a pretty large percentage of communities of color along that route. And so I'll come and give you the latest that we have on that. There's been a lot of committee work out in doing community outreach. That's been worked on for years. Even during the pandemic, they have what they call garage meetings, so they can be outside to hear some of the community. I think there is a ongoing anti-displacement committee established, and to work through that in the community. And so it's a tough one to go, and that's just through north. I also have the one that's going through the Southwest Light Rail Transit where the tunnel went through, and where we just finished our audit. The legislative audit looked at what we've been doing over all these years. We're still about 500 million short, and should be coming back.
500 million?
500 million, yeah, it should be coming back. We've been told that it's gonna be worked on, and maybe by the end of the year have an answer where that's coming from. That's out of what, 2 point something billion or whatever it is, it's very high. And so, but you're at a point there is that it can be very hard to go backwards. You can't, somehow it's gotta be put together. So that one's somewhat controversial. Then the E line is basically a number 6 bus route that comes from the University of Minnesota, goes to Southdale. Basically, it's a 6, goes down Hennepin, and there's some rerouting the city would like to do on Hennepin, and look at how many parking spots. And that when you go from, so I go to meetings that are looking at $1 billion worth of projects, and then I go to the E line, which then there's a bus stop on 34th and Upton that people are concerned about. We're talking about, do I lose 4 trees or 2 trees and 6 parking spots? But they're just as passionate about that than they are at the light rail, the transit over there. So I'm learning a lot. I've only been here now 3-4 months. So anyway, I'll come back and report a little bit on that too.
Thanks.
I can just add one last thing on transportation. It's the start of the micro transit alternative, and we had a presentation on that here already, which is like shorthand, it's like an Uber type of service. You call and they pick you up and they take you within this certain area. And it's the only thing I wanted to mention about that is, again, and we had a presentation on that, is if that particular route or this particular pilot project was very purposely started in a part of Minneapolis that is a high concentration of people of color. So the program is just 1 week or so old already, but it's going well according to the data that we got at the last transportation committee meeting. They have more rides than expected, so looks like it's been a successful pilot, and if that goes the way that Metro Transit is thinking, then it might be expanded and made permanent. One last thing is that the riders, the cab drivers that are providing the service, they're trying to get folks from the community to do that, and we had that discussion here before about that. Right? My understanding is that's what's going on so far as the micro transit program is concerned. Anything else from environment?
Yeah, I was just gonna report a little bit on the environment committee, so I was sitting on that one. I just came back from a conference in Milwaukee with One Water. And there was people from all around the country there, and it was interesting what they're doing for people with low water and that. But it's the thought of like all the water agencies working together, whether you're, Bowser or your water supply or you're doing wastewater, come together with a full circle on water, come together. And I know we kind of talked about like women being hired, because I talked to one of our group, Med Council had about 9 of us there. There was a council member, Lindstrom and myself there, and the rest were like staff. But one woman I talked to, she said when she first started, in the business like 10 years ago, she'd count around the room, which I usually always count around the room so I could relate to her. But she said there was like 1 woman out of every 10 people there. But now it's like 50-50, and a lot of diversity and other factors too, but from age to, racial diversification. So it's really gratifying to see that. And there were some schools in Texas where they were looking at the whole school was One Water, trying to educate, showing the students where the water comes from, where it goes back and reclaimed and that. So, it was good on that to see the diversity on that. And I know I'm real proud to be part of environmental services, and I know there's a aggressive trying to come together with all our communities in the Sept County area.
Question, if I could. Is there any work towards environmental justice with regard to the water and the wastewater and the rivers and the people who live and work by the rivers?
Yeah, there was committees, different committees that was identifying that, both in diversification and justice, like in the workforce, as well as where the water was and the cleaning of things. There was several different groups on that, and I know Chair Lindstrom went to more of those, and we kind of split up a little bit. So I was concentrating on other areas, but that definitely was a big part of that. And I think we'll have One Water, we'll probably do a report with staff, probably coming to this committee coming up, where we can kind of go through a lot of that, with you.
Yeah, because I know with the Upper Harbor Terminal, but in North Minneapolis in particular, around the Mississippi, and then East St. Paul with regard to the wastewater plant and the chemicals that are burned through the sludge, that are a concern of environmental justice with the communities that live around. So I'm wondering if the Met Council is going to start doing some work towards that area.
Yeah, I know we talk about PFAS, and I'll bring that back with staff, because they know the more technical, but I did connect with a gentleman by the name of James Trace, who was
oh yeah, he's the Upper Harbor Terminal guy, yeah.
Yeah, so he was there, and so we exchanged information, and I think we're trying to get resources that kind of come.
One of the groups you might want to connect with, the North Green Zone.
North Green Zone. Okay.
Yeah, and I used to be on the North Green Zone and water. There's also another group called Community Power, and they're working particularly with water, fall, and foliage. That's Community Power. I can give you some connections and names of those.
Very good, yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to get better on that, so thank you, Anita.
So we amended the agenda because Marianne wanted to discuss bylaws.
Marianne? You're on.
Wanted to discuss.
Oh, we're done already? We're on, okay. Thank you. So, in our bylaws, as I've already emailed really a lot of the issues or some of the points that I've really, as I was reading the bylaws. One is the, committee voting for how many committees that should be formed in the future for our bylaws, that should be voted in by our committee councils. This way, we won't have any problem for the next time we amend the bylaws. So we can decide whether we want 5 or 7. It has to be an odd number because 1 should be the undecided vote, so that there's, to break the, what is that called?
Tie.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, we have our bylaws, and it's September now. I mean, I'm sorry to be very forward about this, but our bylaws is not anywhere close to being ready. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong about that. But I've emailed my opinions or suggestions, and I haven't had any return on my email. So that's why I'm bringing this up, okay? And so that's one of my suggestions about that. So we need to put that in the bylaws. And I think we can vote on that, and that's up to you guys. But if you think that's good, then we can email that to suggest yay or nay. But I've been waiting for people to say if that's a good idea, okay? And because from the bylaws that I have done many years ago, 3 bylaws, by the way, just to say, MENSCU, MCTC, and, Asian Council. So they really specify how many in the committees, and it's usually voted within the committees. This way, it's just a formality, really. So, and then the next one is to specify how many, is it yearly, every 2 years, is it every 4 years, are we gonna do the bylaws, to amend the bylaws? And again, we can vote on that. This way it's a formality, again, you know, and that should be written in the bylaws. If we need to put that email to everybody, we can say yay or nay. Is it 2 years, every 4 years? Are you okay with that? And the 2 words that are new in the bylaws, I'm not sure, I don't know if that was discussed, and I mean, if whoever put that there, and as I emailed this, and if you want those words, I don't understand why you did not stand by your words. I just wanted an explanation. And if I put my points out there, and I just wanted you to explain it to me. Stand by your words. If you're proud of it, stand by your words. I just wanted that. But you did not even explain it in the email for everybody to know. I wasn't trying to, I wasn't trying to be strong-headed about it or anything. I put my own feelings about it, about low wealth resident. And to me, it's just that it's a cultural and traditional thing. And everybody saw that in the email. All I wanted to know is that, what do you mean by it? And that's all. And, just stand by what you mean by it. Whoever had that word put there, you wanted that word there in the bylaws, it's an important word to you. So stand by it. We're adults. We're not kids.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Co-Chair. Mary, I get where you're coming from. We have spent a lot of time on the bylaws. Even though my mind don't want to go this way, we get crap like these reports because people really don't want you to be in the know. They would love to have us spending all of our times on the bylaws versus the billions of dollars that are flooding our communities and we're losing out on opportunities. They make it really challenging for us to come to meetings like this and by making us meet in person because we are people of color and a few white people sprinkle in. No. They don't care if we die. I mean, if we die, it's less of a challenge to the status quo. And, you know, you can frown and smirk all you want to. I've been around this long enough to know that there are people inside the system that really don't want to see those dollars go anywhere else but where they've always gone. And the less we have to spend our time on those things, which we should do, and we should come to the meetings, and we should do what Ed McDonald is doing, is raising these questions and putting it out there, and hope the feds hear it or somebody else, and they come in and say, do the right thing by all human beings. And that's really what this is all about. So, yes, I think it's October 7th. We're meeting with the attorneys who've been, I guess, afraid to come meet with us to get some clarification on what we want. So we finally got a meeting scheduled after raising this issue for months. I mean, since I've been here. Leah reworked the bylaws. We've had lengthy discussions there at the committees. We've ratified what we wanted. We've had that go to the attorneys. The attorneys don't understand what we want, and there's all of this stuff going on. So I believe October 7th, there's a meeting. They're finally gonna come and we will dedicate, I guess, as much time as necessary to say, here's what we want in the bylaws. Can we approve this? Can we also have our subcommittees meet virtually so that we're not subject to the problems that the pandemic that we're still in, 400 people dying a day, doesn't, take our lives because we're trying to fight for justice and what is right. None of the other committees have to meet this way. It's just us. We're by ourselves, probably the most diverse group and working for and on behalf of the most diverse population in the county. But we have to go through this. Just like my ancestors had to go through it, and your ancestors and everybody else, because there are people who are still hell-bent on us not getting a fair shake.
May I finish?
Nothing special, just a fair shake of the money that we all invest in the system to be utilized. And I just put that on the record, and I hope it's recorded so that people can hear, because other folks won't say it.
May I finish?
Yeah.
And, the bylaws is right now that I'm talking about, okay? And it's very frustrating to me, honestly, because we should be doing our business with the bylaws that's done. And, whatever money is going around, our bylaws is supposed to be what we're doing the meeting with.
We are.
And I don't understand that, and that is why we're supposed to have the bylaws be taken care of with a committee so that it's not all around with everybody. And then you just ignore somebody's opinion and not even tell them, say, I'm sorry, but we're closed. We don't care about your opinion.
Well,
I mean, that's exactly what you're telling me by,
No,
by ignoring me.
I wrote you a response email that said, I agree with the recommendations, those clarities need to be, thank you very much for doing that work. And knowing that it was all gonna come back here, so that,
Well,
I'm
as
on your.
far as I know, it was only Leah and Francisco that are in the committee. Everyone else is just an opinion, because we did not have a committee.
We organized it that way.
Oh, well, thank you very much for telling me that now.
Yeah, I know, I mean,
But,
it's something that we did.
honestly, may I finish? Thank you.
Let's just see if we can, you had
This is an
just one
unfinished
second.
business.
We had a motion to
Yes.
amend, but you wanna go to a vote, or what do you want us to do with
Well,
your
I'm sorry, but
amendment?
it is on my motion that I'm not finished yet.
So what is your
I'm being
motion?
interrupted.
What is your motion?
My motion is this bylaws, and I'm not finished with my list. So may I finish with my list?
Just for clarification, so you
Thank
want
you.
us to vote on what you're proposing?
Yep.
Yes?
Are we voting?
I'm asking you. Do you want us to vote on what you are proposing?
With everything on my list? That's up to you guys. I mean, I was already asking if you want to vote, yea or nay.
Mr. Chair, may I
Thank
make a
you.
motion?
Thank you, Chair.
May I make a motion?
I just wanted to understand what's the action that we want to take according to you.
What's the action?
Yeah.
It's about the bylaws that's not complete.
So
Because-
what are you asking us to do?
What am I asking you?
Yeah.
I thought I was clear. It's about the bylaws that's not complete, and I'm trying to make a motion about you guys.
So a motion is an action which causes something to pass within a committee. So
Trying to pass,
So you wanna pass that 5 or 7 undecided votes, that we specify years, that we go over amended, situations by the bylaws, and then to discuss about the language like low wealth.
no, I'm trying to add some things in the bylaws. And if you wanna vote on it, then
Okay.
Yes.
Just for clarification purposes, when we submitted a prior draft of changes to the bylaws, General Counsel rejected that. That's why we're meeting again to discuss what can we change or not. So we cannot do that right now because we don't know what we are allowed to do. That's part of the discussion that we need to have. Once we have that discussion with General Counsel and they tell us you can do this and this and that, then we can come back and say, within these parameters, what do you want to change? We don't know that, so I don't know if anything that you propose is acceptable. So we cannot vote on that because it has no meaning at this point because we don't know if it's gonna go forward or
Oh,
not.
so when are you guys gonna do that, Chair? Co-Chair?
October 7th.
October 7th, I get that.
October 7th. Okay,
Is that a virtual meeting?
Yes.
okay. Is that gonna be in the general meeting or?
It's not, it's a special meeting with the general counsel because we do need some clarification about that.
Well, I mean, I suppose I could have gotten that in the email, then I didn't have to do this.
Was it email?
That
Can I
would be
suggest
nice.
can I suggest we take your feedback?
Yes.
And then bring that to general counsel and then incorporate it if we have the legal authority to do so?
Yeah.
And then we can review
We
the draft.
we will definitely discuss everything after we know from General Counsel. So we just hold off on that.
For our next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been nice if that was emailed to me, then I didn't need to do this.
Okay.
So that would, like the last 2 weeks that I brought all of this in the email. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any last announcements?
Today is a National Registration Day, so I love that. Hopefully you guys posted something on social media. You know what that is?
Say that again?
It's a National Registration Day for elections.
Okay.
Today, always, September 20th. Get a
Vote
friend
early
register.
and vote often.
Yes.
I usually vote 5 times,
Sometimes you can though in a year.
making up for my ancestors.
Depending on how many
So we're
special
We're
elections
denying
there
the
are.
vote, so.
Yes.
The only announcements, it is Hispanic Heritage Month,
That's-
and this coming Saturday, there'll be the taco tour on Lake Street.
What?
Saturday,
That's
the taco tour on Lake Street with all the nonprofits that are doing things along Lake Street, and then there's also the LEDC golf tournament, and then Latino Chamber of Commerce has the the Latino Business Awards. So it's been a busy time.
Any other
Stress Latino, not Hispanic.
Latinx? No.
Not Latinx.
Any other announcements? Okay, well, thank you very much, and,
I have
yeah.
one more, sorry.
Edward.
Did we do roll call?
Thank you,
At
by
the
the way,
beginning
for
of the
that, for
meeting?
that email.
Are we doing that still?
I really appreciate that.
Okay.
We don't do roll call if we're here in person, because they can take
Oh,
attendance, because
okay.
we're not online.
For some reason, I thought we did roll call last time, so it's like.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to raise one question. I know when I've been talking, I've noticed staff person and this person smirking, making faces around the comments. And I would just ask, respect me, don't disrespect me. I don't smirk when you talk or do those kind of body language things. It's insulting, it doesn't look nice, and I'm just calling you out and telling you to please stop, okay? Because it offends me.
And may I say something, Council?
Well, I think we're done.
Okay, well,
Thank
maybe
you.
after we can go to the side.
Yeah, maybe
No,
not.
Well, thank you very much. Today was a good, some substantial meeting. I will never use that word again, since I cannot pronounce it. And help yourself, we still have some food left over back there. And thank you very much. We declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. End of the day.
Good night, everybody.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Nice seeing you.
Adjourn.
Do we have a
Second.
motion? Yes.
So moved.
So moved, thank you.
Second.
The sixth.
Yes.
Vanessa, you're gonna run the whole thing next time. We're ready.
I didn't know my face.
How are you?
I'll have to look in the mirror.
You look beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah.